Hello, I'm Brett Knowles from PM2 Consulting. This video is going to walk through a comparison of MyObjectives and its approach to scorecarding and gamification of business compared to a traditional scorecard or OKR solution. Now, it's important to note that this is a comparison of what I'm going to call best practices. In the scorecard world, that comes from the work of Doctors Kaplan and Norton and the software vendors that they have certified. The OKR world is kind of a crowd-funded idea or crowdsourced, and there is no methodology that one must follow. So I've followed the ideas that are generally accepted as within the principles of OKR. So let's talk about MyObjectives. The way it works is overall we should be able to identify the corporation's or organization's goals, and we're going to add to that the strategic priorities. Because of course a goal that is more strategically important is of course more important for us to follow up on and make sure happens. Then we cascade those down to a series of objectives or sub-goals. Now, in MyObjectives, we have defined time periods. So in the typical MyObjectives implementation takes a look at a quarterly time period. So we take that longer term strategic goal that might take you a year or many years to accomplish and break it down to what do we need to do this quarter, next quarter, the quarter after that, all in moving towards that longer term strategic goal. So quarterly objectives. Those in turn get cascaded down to the individuals within the teams who are responsible for getting that work done. In fact, within MyObjectives, you can define your own role clarity framework. So, for example, many organizations use RACI. RACI stands for Responsible, Approver, Inform, Consulted, and define the different roles that each individual might have in the success of that particular project. Then finally, we need the ability to do performance reporting. And in MyObjectives, we can do the standard import data or key in hard numbers, but also that new trend we see towards self-reporting. If you think about it, when you play golf, there's no referee that comes along behind you. You keep score for yourself. And in golf, if you cheat, you're only cheating on yourself. In the business world, if you give us the wrong information, we'll find out about it fairly quickly because by the end of that month, we'll discover the progress hasn't been made that you've been reporting. Now, in addition to this, what we've learned is what truly drives people is not that overall performance statistics or even pay. It's the intrinsic rewards. If you think of what makes online gaming so interesting, because no one gets paid to play online gaming, it's intrinsically rewarding. We understand what our purpose is. We get the opportunity to master the skills. We get the autonomy to go get the work done. We get to see the progress we're making. And it's those things which give us those intrinsic individual rewards. In MyObjectives, those are represented by badges, leaderboards, certifications that you win for the work you've achieved and the successes. Likewise, we need to see how the teams are performing and recognize the success the teams have had towards those objectives. And this is important because now we can match the drumbeat of the business, give individuals and teams daily, weekly, monthly feedback. And then overall, we need to be able to aggregate those scores and give us a strategic performance report, but not only at the top level, at every level of the organization. So that's what MyObjectives does. Let's compare that to what we get with, for example, a scorecard. So for scorecarding, it's important to note that they do give us exactly the same strategic goals and priorities. They also encourage you to break it down to what we're going to do for each of the financial periods. So that's within the scope of a standard scorecard. What scorecards don't do is they don't give us that link to the HR system and the role clarity. So we may assign someone who reports on this, but we don't have the full depth that supports that intrinsic reward system. Also, on a traditional balanced scorecard world, which comes from the BI environment where we're sucking data out of existing databases and systems, we don't have this self-reporting capability. What does this mean? Well, obviously, without this role clarity, we can't do this individual recognition at all. It also means that we can't do this team recognition. But we can, of course, do the strategic performance reporting. So that's what you get with a standard scorecarding solution. Let's go back to the overall MyObjectives model and see what you get when you go for an OKR type solution. Now, again, I need to emphasize there is no best practices on OKR. There is no generally accepted principles. There's just a series of authors that have written stuff. But a universal truth seems to be we're not going to worry about the strategic priorities. So what we end up with is not strategic goals and priorities. We just end up with a list of goals. And what that means is those goals don't give us a clear reporting relationship to what we need to do to achieve them. In fact, in most of the OKR world, we don't even have time buckets. We just list off what the objectives are. So that gives us at best a dotted line connection between this goal and these objectives. In fact, it reminds me more of a shopping list than a recipe. It's just a list of things you would like to have, but it doesn't give you the detailed instructions of how you're going to use those to create value, and in what measure and what the priorities are and how we actually go about achieving that. So some people have called OKRs a bucket list. Now, OKRs do give us that role clarity. I mean, after all, OKRs are just management by objectives under a new name. And they allow the same performance reporting that we see within MyObjectives. Most OKR systems don't have anything about the gamification. What does that mean? It means I don't get that individual recognition, but I can give you some nice dials on what the individual has done. But again, it's not priority set, it's not linked to strategy with anything other than this dotted line. It means that we also can't have this formal team recognition. I can have team performance and give you some nice dials. Finally, because we've gotten rid of the strategic priorities and we just have a laundry list of goals, we can't give you strategic performance reporting. But I can give you some nice dials. So overall with OKR, you end up with more than you get with scorecarding, but you don't get the full features that management by objectives gives you. To phrase this another way, let's take a look at OKRs. In summary, there's no strategic priorities. There are no time periods. There are no intrinsic rewards. And there's no strategic performance reporting. It's basically a laundry list of goals and objectives that you can indicate the progress you're making against them. It's a to-do list. In traditional scorecarding, it has the strategic priorities and so forth, but it doesn't allow that role clarity work. It doesn't allow self-reporting. It doesn't support the intrinsic rewards that allow us to cascade past the department down to the teams and individuals. Whereas MyObjectives, it gives you clear strategic priorities. It has user-defined time periods, or what we call games. It gives us defined role clarity. In fact, you can set up whatever role clarity framework you would like. It allows us to import data, if you'd like to, from existing systems. You can manually input the data if you would like, or you can self-report. It allows us to support the full richness of intrinsic rewards, the badges, awards, leaderboards. And these are things that drive employee engagement, sustainability of the system. They reduce employee turnover. They improve product performance, product quality, customer satisfaction. And of course, it allows us to do that strategic performance reporting at all levels. So I hope this explains for you the difference between what is a scorecard, what is an OKR solution, and what does MyObjectives brings to the table. Thank you for your time.